More than half the children, because it were children primarily, who left for exile in 1976.
What?
More than half of them who left were so young. Some of them didn't even know the difference between the ANC and the APC or whatever the case might be. They were just leaving, running away from the brutality of the Boers. You know, the tarmac of the airport was looking like there's been a battle that was being fought there on that tarmac. There were sandbags and all sorts, and then there were soldiers there strutting with their AK-47 and all things. Now we landed into that situation. Some people would not last a day in that prison. How I lasted 8 years, heavens alone knows. Some people would get in there in the morning, by the end of the day you are gone. The biggest mistake that happened in South Africa was for us to allow that ANC to become a government.
In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or position of this channel, its hosts, or affiliates. This podcast is a platform for open discussions and exploration of various perspectives, including controversial and unconventional ideas. We encourage viewers to think critically, do their own research, and form their own opinions. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as fact, advice, or an endorsement of any specific viewpoint. Viewers' discretion is advised. Umoya Ulight, Umoya Upright. Welcome to another episode of MOYA Political Series. We see all the support you guys are giving us. Thank you so much. Thank you especially to the members who are helping make sure that the lights stay on every month. For the rest of us who are not members, you please watch the adverts all the way until the end, because that's how you make sure that you contribute to the channel. Last time we had OBBEY MABENA come in to give us the history of his role in the liberation of our country and his role in MK. And we got up to the part where he has gone to Swaziland now to go look for the MK branch that side. So Ndate, thank you so much for coming once again. We are still following your train of thought. Thank you for always honoring the invitation.
Thank you very much once again. And in the first episode, I tried to give a background to the build-up to the uprisals of 1976 and the aftermath. Now, for this time around, I will try to confine myself to where we are now, because a lot of what I may say to build up on what I've already stated there will be just a repetition of things that people have heard in many other ways. Now, what I want to try and do this time around, I want to try and speak to the whole issue of how did we come to be where we are today. The 31 years of what was touted as democracy. How much of democracy was it? Or for that matter, was it democracy in any sense at all? Now, I've heard a lot of people analyzing our political situation, our media and everybody else. And what frustrates me more than anything else is that the analysis that people are always giving do anything but explain where did it all start. Now, having met with the ANC in 1976 in Swaziland and the outbreak of June 16, 1976, which resulted in me having to leave the country just 4 days after June 16, 1976, because now I was under pressure. It was not out of choice. I went back to the ANC in Swaziland. When I got there, there were a lot of children who were also leaving South Africa. And amongst the things that we have not told people, and these are some of the gaps that we find in the story of our struggle. First and foremost, I think more than half the children, because it were children primarily, who left for exile in 1976.
What?
More than half of them who left were so young. Some of them didn't even know the difference between the ANC and the APC or whatever the case might be. They were just leaving, running away from the brutality of the Boers, because their reaction to June 16, 1976 was really something that none of us had ever thought could happen. But there it was happening. So we got into exile. This time I was going to exile. When we arrived in Swaziland, children were running left, right, and center all over the place. It was a question of whom do they collide with first. If they collide with somebody who calls himself or herself PAC, then they end up being PAC. Sure. And then they collide with people who call them ANC, of course, ANC with his military wing, Umkhonto weSizwe, then they end up being Umkhonto weSizwe. But it is not a case of people having left consciously understanding what was happening. Because June 16, 1976, was not occasioned by the African National Congress. And I'm saying that as a member of the African National Congress, I knew about the ANC. But many adults, never mind those kids who left with us in 1976, did not even know about the ANC because it was not there. What was there was Black Consciousness Movement. And the person who started it all, the build-up to June 16, 1976, was Steve Biko with this Black Consciousness Movement. And the children, on that fateful day, the 16th of June, 1976, the students were led, amongst other people, by Tsietsi Mashinini, with his colleague, Abo Khotso Siahlula, and many other people. They were all students. I was not a student. And what saddens me more than anything else is the fact that very little, if anything, is said about them. And that robs of this new generation of some of the facts of our struggle. Because I feel that struggle that we're fighting did not belong to any particular individual. I played a very active role in that struggle, but it's not mine. I'd gone there on behalf of the people. I was fighting for the people. And the first thing that I was supposed to have done, or rather that we're supposed to have done under the ANC, if it was indeed the ANC that we thought we were joining when we joined the ANC, the first thing that should have happened is that we should have reported to the people of South Africa, especially those of us who were in MK, because we had learned a lot out there about the struggle, things that we did not know, but some were not so fortunate as to get exposure to the real nitty-gritties. So we arrived in Swaziland. Both the PAC and the ANC were not ready to receive us. They did not know what to do with us. They had no places. They had to run around now finding places where we can be put and all those things. Those who had relatives like myself, I stayed for part of the time with my relatives. For part of the time, I even stayed in a hotel because fortunately I could afford some of these things. I was a worker, right? So we were to stay there, not knowing what's going to happen to us. In our case, we stayed for almost 3 months before there could be a movement in the direction of us getting out of Swaziland and go wherever we're supposed to go. Now, the first thing that happened, one evening they came, they told me where I was, good to know, we are now, you are now, guys, you are now leaving now. Yabona. So now babunkadiming, there's a kumbi lapha ngaphandle yasilayisha ke, the first big group to leave Swaziland post June 16, 1976. We were in a kumbi, I think maybe about 14 of us, if my memory serves me well. We were driven ebusuku lapha, went through the roads and somewhere near the border with Namahasha, with Mozambique, a small dorpy called Namahasha. The kumbi pulled out in a bush and then we had to walk the rest of the way to the border. And then we walked. When we reached the border with Namahasha, between Swaziland and Mozambique, the border between Swaziland and Mozambique, we went through the fence. And going through the fence, there was a pavement, you know, a normal pavement. And then there was a street, a third road. And across there was and then there were houses. Now we come through the fence, we cross the street, the third road, straight into a house across. And in the corner, it's got some big glasses. We are put in there. Now, when we get in there, Uba Mashiko tells us, okay, comrades, you stay here for a while, and then the Frelimo guys will come from Maputo. Lorenzo Marx was about an hour or so away from that place. So now the arrangement was that some Frelimo soldiers will come and pick us up and take us to Lorenzo Marx, so which we know as Maputo now. So when we get there, that's where we were to be processed now for going further with our journey. Now, when we got off there, the house, I think it was a holiday home of some Portuguese guys in their days there, but it was now home, empty. There was nothing. We had some few sleeping bags, and then from there we had a small saucepan, plus a benzene. I don't know if you know these green 20-liter cans of benzene. We had one empty one there. And then we had a few parcels of chicken pieces and some maize meal. So we were left there with that. We were told that they will come back with other stuff and all those things. So we were left there. Now, when we got there, we found that there's no way we could all go to sleep at the same time because the house was not big enough. So others would sleep, others would just sit outside and would be chatting amongst ourselves around a fire. And then later on, maybe we go and sleep when there's space, and so on and so forth. So we prepared our meals there. When we prepared our meals, porridge was in that benzene container. Now, the benzene container had some rust inside. After having it for our meal, people started developing stomach pains, food poisoning. Now remember, we were dropped last night at this house, at this place. We don't even know our surroundings here. We don't even know whether there's a clinic or there's no clinic, where to turn, and all those things. So we wake up in the morning. People start complaining about stomach pains. And fortunately, as I stated in the first episode, I had picked up Portuguese in my last visit to Mozambique. Now with this, I was able now to just go and find some neighbors and talk to them in Portuguese and ask them where could we go for health services and all those things. Eventually, I found a clinic somewhere there, and I managed to take people there to get some treatment, and fortunately, there was no fatality. Then, went back. Fortunately, what we were left with, after we had prepared the first meal, there was still enough for the second meal. But after the second meal, there was nothing. And the next day, nobody arrived to check on us. And we're all by ourselves in that place. Nobody from the ANC. Remember, I told you, the ANC never saw this thing coming. So they were caught in the most literal meaning of the word, caught with their pants down. On the third day, people now were complaining and all those things, crying, and I was the only mature person amongst them. I was the only worker. And somehow all of them started looking at me as a person who must come up with answers to the things that were happening. And I did my best to try and assuage their fears, to tell them, look guys, you must understand, our liberation movement, we're just leaving the country now. The organization is fixing things, and things will get sorted out. On the third day, Ndate Nkadiming arrived with more people. Whereas now the first batch that we were could not be accommodated by that house. It was not a big house, it was a small house. But they brought more people. When they came, he was in a company of, I think there was a guy called Duma in Swaziland also. He was an ANC guy, an underground. So they came. When they came, I went to them. I confronted them. I said, no, this is not on. You leave us in this place. You don't give us money. And you are not giving us any groceries and things like that for people. But worse, people fall sick. Nobody knows what must be done. Fortunately, I managed. So all I need from you now, what I'm asking for, can you, because they had brought some food again with us. I said, over and above this food, because we don't know when next you are going to come. We're expecting you yesterday, you only came today. We don't know when next you shall come. Therefore, can you please leave us with some money so that in the event that you don't come timelessly, then we can use this money to go and buy. There are some shops here. I've seen some shops from where we can buy. Then he left us with the money there. So we stayed there. Once again, we were promised, no, the Frelimo guys will come and fetch you. We stayed there for over a month with those promises. And the place, needless to say, the place was really full now. And now, some more people were coming out, but not only students now. There were even some elderly people. I remember there were even some taxi guys who were active in Soweto. So now the boys were after them. They So when they come there now, sometimes you would find them, some people wanting to fight, and I had to deal with that situation. And needless to say, one day in the course of that month, Jacob Zuma came to visit us there. Apart from Ubaba Nkadiming, Jacob Zuma was the next high-profile person in the movement who came to see us there. But otherwise, being this group that we were there, we didn't have a single person from the movement who was staying with us in that place. But also, when I was analyzing that place, I said to myself, even if they say I know nothing about war, but the Boers, if they can come here, they don't even need to cross the fence. They can just throw grenades from across Swaziland through the window, and that will be the end of us. Fortunately, nothing of the sort happened. Eventually, the Frelimo guys came. They picked us up. Some of us, others had to remain. It was September now. And schools in Europe, September 1976, schools in Europe opens around September. So when we got to Swaziland, to Lorenzo Marx or Maputo, we found some ANC now officials. There was General, what's his name? Anyway, never mind their name. So we found them there in that flat. There was a big flat. We were taken to this flat. When we got into this flat, then they introduced themselves to us and they told us that now they were going to process us. And what was going to happen there was those who want to go for military training will be sent to a place where they are going to train. And there are those, and then those who were going to, who want to go to school will be sent to Tanzania, from whence they will be distributed around the places that can give us schools around the world. Now, one little detail that I nearly forgot to mention here. When we were leaving Swaziland, I, for example, because of the manner in which I left, and my family could now even come to Swaziland once or twice when I was there. I had some clothes of my own, and then I bought myself some toiletries. So as we were preparing now to leave Swaziland for Mozambique, they told us, look guys, you don't need to carry any of your baggage. Just go as you are, because there's everything where you are going. You'll find clothing from overseas, and all those things. I looked at this now with the experience that we have had waiting up to now before we can be moved. I was beginning to be suspicious of the bona fides of the people we're dealing with here. So when they said we must leave our baggage, I said, I will part with my clothes and everything when I see those things that you say are awaiting us from, not now, not before. As a result, now poor kids, you can't blame them. They had no experience of life that I had as a person who's been working. All of them left, some were even in short pants. Kids, I'm talking about kids here. Some of them were even in short pants. We go to Maputo, then there was this issue now, right? Those of you who want to go to school, one side. Those of you who want to go for military training, one side. The bulk of the people we're with opted for going to school. Only 7 of us opted to go for military training. And then now, somehow, there was an issue here where they were saying now, yeah, there's things. When we left Namahasha before this happened, one of the things that happened, the issue of those who are going to school was raised. That look, some are going to school, and since they are going to school, the school year in Europe is starting this month. So maybe those of you who want to go for military training should first allow those who want to go to school to go first, and then you will follow thereafter. And then me included, those of us who were deciding to go for military training, I said, no way. No way. The way we must leave this place now is those who came first must be the first to leave for Lorenzo Marx. Those who want to go to school, when we are going to sacrifice our lives to fight for the freedom of our country, they are choosing to go to school. They can wait. We dug our heels in and we left. That's how, when we got to Mozambique, to Maputo now.
Who were you with? Who are the other ones who chose military training?
Military training? No, it were kids. Kids, youngsters.
You don't remember their names?
No, their names I remember, but I'm not sure. Maybe some other time we'll talk about them. I'll mention them, but it's not a problem for me. But anyway, we demanded that we were treated in accordance with our arrival. We were the first to arrive in Swaziland, so we must be the first to leave. And then when we reached Maputo, then we were grouped together. Those who wanted to go to school and those who wanted to go for military training. Now, something very interesting happened. When we're supposed now to go for these interviews, because we're in the rest of the house, they were in just one other room where they will call us one by one. Whilst we're waiting to be called now, there were a group of about 6 girls. These 6 girls come to me. They say to me, hey, look here, we are not here to fight or to come into exile. Oh, what do you mean? What do you want then here? They say, no, there's this guy. One of the guys was doing the recruiting. I'll definitely won't mention his name. Now, this guy, I think, had a girlfriend amongst these girls. Now, he went to some party where these girls were enjoying themselves, and he said, guys, don't you want to go to Swaziland? And he said, sure, let's go. So he took them, crossed into Swaziland. When he reached Swaziland, he took them out. There's a nightclub in Swaziland called 702. He took them to that nightclub. Whilst they were dancing there, this guy had a girlfriend who was now also part now of the recruitment. Now, I don't know if somebody told this girl that, look, hey, your guy is with some girls there at such and such, at the nightclub. Just go and find out what's happening. So this lady goes there. When he gets there, he finds people are dancing and all those things, and this guy also said, hey, Mnumzan, what's going on here? This guy says, no, these guys are going to exile. What? I'm just entertaining them so that they should not be bored, right? So this guy says, okay, if they are going to exile, let's take them now to Namahash. Now, they were not in a position now to change things now. They were put in a car. They came to join us at that border gate. And then from there, when we were taken to Lorenzo Marx, they were also in the group that we're living with. But now when we're in Lorenzo Marx, that's when they came to me to tell me that no, actually, we were not coming to be in this thing of yours. I said, my ladies, I've got very bad news for you. There's no going back. Because right now, you are with us. You are seeing all of us. If you go back to South Africa and the Boers get hold of you, you'll have to tell them about us. And then from there, our families are going to be in trouble. Therefore, there's no way. I feel sorry for you if you came in the manner that you're telling me you came out. But now my advice to you is just choose to, when you go in there, choose to go to school. Don't even try and tell the story because it won't help you. There's no way you can go back. It's as simple as all that. So they ended up saying they are going to school. And then the 7 of us, me plus 6, we said, no, we want to go to for military training. So we put in a plane the next day from Lorenzo Marx to Angola via Lusaka in Zambia. When we went through Lusaka, we did not even get off the plane. It's only those who were getting off and getting on, and then from there it proceeded to Luanda from Lusaka. Now, at this juncture, I think it's noteworthy to mention that all of us, it was our first experience of being on an aeroplane. There's this one youngster who was sitting next to me. He was now sitting next to the window and he was looking outside. Now when the plane is flying, somewhere you see the wings as if there's something wrong with them, they'll come off. So this guy says to me, no man, look, can you tell these people? Now fortunately he couldn't speak Portuguese. He says now, can you speak to these people and tell them that there's something wrong with this, with this wing, it will break. I looked at it. I got a bit worried myself because I didn't know what. But I had to be strong. So I said, no, don't worry. This is how these planes are. There's nothing wrong with this. So anyway, we landed in Luanda in Lusaka, from Lusaka, Luanda. We arrived in Luanda at about 2 in the afternoon, 2:02. Now, as the plane was now descending now to land at the airport, when we looked through the windows, you know, the tarmac of the airport was looking like there's been a battle that was being fought there on that tarmac. There were sandbags and all sorts, and then there were soldiers there strutting with their AK-47 and all things. Now we landed into that situation. Now remember, we don't even have a piece of paper on us. We're not accompanied by anybody. We're all by ourselves. We don't even have 1 rand in our pocket, even where that rand would not have helped us because we're in a different country. They don't use rands there. So we landed, got out of the plane. Didn't know what was next to happen, so we got out. As we got out, then there was this guy who came from Norway, came and said, hello comrades, you see, he recognized that we are South Africans. He had never seen us before. He was someone we were to know as Cassius Make. Now, a bit about how Cassius Make was there to receive us at the airport. The ANC, when we got there, did not have an office in Angola. The ANC did not have a camp in Angola. There was nothing. Cassius Make had arrived there as part of a 5-people delegation, which comprised Joe Modise, Joe Slovo, Cassius Make, Max Moabe, and General Jackie Mulife. These were the 5 people who had been dispatched because the ANC had its headquarters in Zambia. So they had been dispatched to go and receive us as the first group to arrive for training in Angola. So he came to us and said, oh, hello, comrades. Okay, come this way, comrades. Hey, I was so relieved because I didn't know what was going on. We were not given any briefing. I just told, get on a plane, comrades, you're on your way. So we got to Luanda. We got off the plane and then we were met by Cassius Make because the others who had not seen them by then. He's the one now who had been able to come in and meet us just as we came off the plane before we could even get to the immigrations. Because we're not going to go through the immigrations. We did not even have a piece of paper in our pockets. So we're taken out, we followed him, and then there was a Land Rover outside in which there were these 5, right? I mean the other 4 plus Comrade Cassius. So we got into the plane. Oh, we were greeted, oh, comrades, and all those things. Hey, we felt good, right? The airport itself, I told you about the scene that we found on the ground. Now, the airport buildings themselves, there were gaping holes on the walls there. And then from there, there were even other smaller holes, which I think were made by AK-47 bullets when they was fighting there. And then the holes, you could tell this must be a bazooka that hit that place and opened such a hole. So we're taken out. We were taken out, we got into the car, and then we started driving. We drove through the city. Now, the whole city, Luanda, the buildings were not better than the airport itself. You could see, there's a lot of fighting that has been going on here. So we're taken through the city. Towards the end of the city, we turned into a short street. And then there was a building, it was later BTR written, but it had been a military camp that had been used by the Portuguese before they left. Now the Portuguese had left it. So we drove through the gates there, but there were some soldiers from the Angolan army who were also, because as we were going to Angola, they were still coming in from exile as well, those who were fighting. There was no real government in Luanda at the time. And the shops that were passing on the way, none of them looked like they had even a sweet inside. So we moved in. They moved through the gate to some row of barracks. They pulled up the right, comrades, showed us, this is where you're going to be staying. It's about 3:30 by then. So in my stupid mind, I'm thinking probably they are now going to get the things that we will need to live here. Now remember, I'm with these boys. All of them have got nothing. They don't even have a toothbrush. Never mind a change of clothes. So we get off, we get into the barracks, okay. No, there's nobody who's paying any attention to us. So we get in there. We wait, because in my mind, these people are coming in. They can't drop us like this. No, you can't. Men, 4, 5, 6. Now, the sunsets are very late there, but by 6, I realize now, these guys are not coming back. So I walk out. Now, when we went in, there was some admin block on our right. You could see it's what is supposed to be the admin block. So I walked there to the admin block. When I got there, I saw some officers inside. You could see their uniforms, these camouflage uniforms were still new. And then even their insignias, you know, they still needed to be polished and all. You see, these guys are still even filling the chairs they're sitting. They've just come in, right? So I went to them, I greeted them. And then I introduced myself. Can you believe that? I'm introducing myself. Told them I'm from the ANC, and now we're coming here for purpose of getting some military training. We've been dropped here by our leaders. They will come back maybe tomorrow. But in the meantime, we've got some problems, we've got some needs. What are your needs? No, just like that. They didn't ask us many questions. What are our needs? What are your needs? I say to them, you know, because of the manner in which we left our country, most of us don't have even a change of clothes. We don't have any toiletries and all those things. Then one of them, the senior one of them, I think was a general, he called a soldier from outside. And he said, look, take this guy to the stores. That is the stores of the camp. And then he will tell you what he needs and give him whatever it is he needs. So we went there, got there, were given all the things that we needed, toiletries and some uniforms for those who need clothes and all those things. From there we went to our barrack. And then from our barrack we wanted to know where are we going to, where do we find food for dinner now? So we're shown the place, and we went there. No people you could get in. Just from outside you could see this is not a place that's supposed to be preparing food. But anyway, we got in there. There were a few soldiers in the queue there getting their food. As we got closer to the pot, they were using these big pots. There was macaroni in the pot, but I think there was more cooking oil than there was macaroni. The macaroni, you could see it from inside the oil. You know, we didn't take anything, all of us. We went to bed without having dinner. The next morning, we woke up. We went there. Fortunately, the next morning, we found that there was some coffee and some Portuguese rolls, and we didn't know that we're fortunate to get that because some other days there's nothing. Anyway, cut a long story short, after breakfast we waited, and then eventually these guys had arrived, I think, after they had had their breakfast at the hotel, because they were staying at a hotel there. So they came after their breakfast. Yes, comrades, how are you? No, fine, thanks. Yeah. So how did you travel from Soweto and all those things? So I started explaining to them. But I told them that one of my gripes is that place, that transit on the border between Swaziland and I said it is not safe at all to keep people in a place like that. I wish they can do something about it. That's one thing. But number two, there's not even a single person from the movement who's looking after those people. It was fortunate that I can speak Portuguese. But these people can't speak Portuguese. They can't speak Changan and all those things. And we dropped just like that. And I was to learn from others when they came later that no, they stopped taking them to that place. But did I have to tell them that?
So we're trying to establish, how long do you stay in exile? What happens when you're in there?
You know, where I am driving, I'm giving you this picture. I'm trying to show you the disorganization that we found when we joined the ANC. Because without understanding that disorganization, you'll never be able to understand the disorganization that we have lived through in the past 31 years. Nothing surprised us because we're to learn a lot of things that were happening, you know, based even on the way we got there. We had been told lies when we were living in Swaziland. Amongst the things we were told that I didn't mention was that, comrades, you're going to train for 3 months. And in 3 months' time, you'll be trained and you'll be fighting the Boers in Soweto. When we got there, in 3 months, in 6 months, we didn't have a camp. And where we were staying in
So what were you doing every day?
Where we were staying in Luanda, sometimes there would be no food in the camp because we were at the mercy of the Angolans. When they prepare their own food there, then we also go and join the queue. If there's enough food, then we get food. But sometimes you go there, there's no food even for themselves because there's no order. And I'm with kids. And then one other thing, one day, I think it was around 8, 9, I'm called by one of the soldiers from the gate because we're now in a camp other than the one on which we arrived. I didn't want to go through those details, but we're in another camp. There was a bit more order in this one. Now, when we got to this camp, the administration there knew me to be the most senior from the ANC. So even the leadership of the ANC, when it arrived there, they would call me because some of them I would have to interpret for them when talking to the Angolans. So one of the problems we found there was that there were no health facilities in the camp that we're staying in, and malaria was rampant, and the virulent species of malaria known as cerebrum malaria. When that malaria hits you, blood oozes out of all orifices of the body. Wherever it finds a way to go out, blood. Ears, nostrils, eyes, everywhere, blood comes out. Again, nobody has even told us that should you be sick, this is what you do. I ran around the place, there was no hospital post there. You could see that there was a place, every camp has got a place inside where people go for health services. Now, that place, in fact, instead has been used as part of the toilets by these guys who were staying there. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I had to go and find a place. There was only one hospital in operation in the whole of Luanda. Like in Pretoria, you find that there's only one hospital. And that hospital was only serving people who were directly involved in a battle that was raging just outside the city between Angola, Cubans, and the Boers. The Boers and UNITA of Jonas Savimbi. They were fighting. So now, the people whom this one hospital, it was called a military hospital, was working, it was only people who were coming from. But to cut a long story short again, I managed to work my way into this place. And I negotiated with the authorities, whereas the Angolans themselves, Angolan citizens, could not get into that hospital. I managed to get our guys in there. I even assisted people from Namibia, the SWAPO guys. I also managed to get them in there. Now, as all this was happening, this is where you're going to see now what we're dealing with. There was nobody up until now. And this needs also some quick explaining. You see, when the ANC got into exile, amongst the things that were supposed to happen, I remember that in 1961, ANC got into exile in 1960. But then the people that were going out, who were supposed to constitute now the ANC in exile, there are people who were supposed to go for military training. They were sent to China initially, and the then Soviet Union and all those things. Upon returning to Tanzania, they were supposed now to be sent on mission in South Africa, only to find that because of the geopolitical setting of the region, it proved to be mission impossible, because before you could get into South Africa, you had to go through maybe Mozambique. Mozambique was under Portuguese rule. You had to go through Rhodesia before it became Zimbabwe. Rhodesia was under British rule, right? And Namibia was under the Boers, and Angola was under Portuguese. So it was difficult for us to infiltrate into the country. This created problems, because quite a number of people had left and they were staying there in Tanzania. And in Tanzania, they were not allowed to engage in any military activities, because in Tanzania, like in Zambia, we're supposed to be there as refugees, not for military purposes. And it is precisely for that reason that even us, as we were leaving the country now, there's no way we could be trained, that is officially, in either Tanzania or North Nam. There was no country, even Botswana, that could train us, because that would amount to inviting the Boers to come and beat them up. Although later the Boers ended up going to Botswana, they hit them in Lesotho. There was the Maseru massacre, there was the Gaborone massacre, there was the Matola massacre. Everywhere where we are, even Zambia, the Boers went there at one time to attack those countries. Also, to push these countries into getting rid of us. So that the Boers wanted the locals now to say, these people must leave our country, because it's because of them that we're beaten up. These were the difficulties that we're dealing with them. But fast forward, we spent some time in Luanda initially, waiting for training, because there was no camp for us. The ANC didn't have an office. The office was to open later once we were there, and many other things. But now...
You say it took a year?
Yeah. We arrived in Angola it took almost a year, not a whole year. But we arrived in Angola in 1976. Our training started in 1977. Mm. But now, I would understand all that. But our problem started now was explaining that they were unable to come back and fight in South Africa. And that resulted in even fights in the camps amongst ANC people, out of frustration and everything. And there were also things like some tribal fights amongst the Zulus, the Xhosas, and whatever, where the others were supposed to be superior to the others. These are things that we don't talk about. And yet, for me, I think really it is criminal of us not to tell our people about, because these are the problems that we had to deal with, so that when we come home, we should be able to help our people also to overcome these problems, because these are some of the things that delay our progress in terms of...
So what happens, Gabe? What is the training? And how long does it take? And then when do you guys come back? What
Now,
creates
to
that?
come to that, I'm trying now to come as quickly as possible to that one. So now, when we arrive in Luanda, again, there's nobody, because the people who had left since the 60s, right, had even left the camps. They were now, many of them were living on their own. You know, they'd gotten married to the locals and all those things, and some of them were not even known where they... Yes. Now, all of a sudden now, here's this groups coming from Soweto and from all over South Africa now for training and all those things. There's life now. The ANC now is becoming, you know, a serious operation, but there are no people to come and take care of us. Meantime, I'm running the show now in Luanda. I'm the one who's responsible for people who arrive. Everybody who arrives there must be taken care of by me. I must see to it that these people are given place to find a place to sleep. They eat. They do whatever. When they are sick, I must take them to hospital. I must go and interpret there. And when we need food, half the time there was no food even for it. I find ways and means of whatever. I'm doing all these things. Meanwhile, they are busy running around now trying to round up these people who had left, some of them left with Oliver Tambo, others followed and all those things. They are rounding themselves until they got them. When they got them, they bring them to Luanda now, because everything being equal, they are the ones who are supposed to be running the show. But I'm running the show. And when they get there, they find that I've got everything under control there. Right? So they start now. You hear them talking. You know, I remember one of them, Julius Mkwena, who was the camp commander. You know, after arriving there, he's talking down the corridor from where I had pointed them to stay and all that. You know, meaning me. Who is this one who is now busy moving about here, and right now is wearing civilian clothes, and the others can't wear civilian clothes, and all that nonsense. And then the next thing, they send somebody to come and talk to me, to come and tell me, because he's a camp commander now. He's in charge for all of us. But he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know that what he's finding there. How was it crafted? Right? Who's responsible? And it's me. This one that he says, Kimangi and O. And then the next thing, he sends somebody to talk to me. He doesn't call me to find out from me what is happening here. How come you are moving in and out of the camp when others can't move? Because people were not allowed to move there. It was dangerous. Because also the kind of uniforms that we had.
How long were you guys in exile? What is it that brought you back home? Or did you stay until that moment in the 90s when they said come back home?
Yeah, it's a problem. I stayed in Angola for 3 years after our training. But in those 3 years, eventually, they put me in a prison because they had built a prison in Angola called Quatro. Now, that prison, I don't believe the Boers had any prison approximating that. The viciousness and brutality.
How did you end up in prison? What
You see, that's why it's difficult for me, because I try to build up so that these things can make sense when I come to them. Right. There was this problem. Number one, they had a problem with the things that I was doing there successfully, which they themselves could not do. And they felt threatened that I might take over the organization now from them. And really, no such thought was in my mind. And then they started a campaign now, but later many other people were treated that way. once they feel that you are a bit intelligent, more intelligent than they are, then they start this campaign that you are an enemy agent. They spread the word amongst the kids here, the children, that you see that we know these people. When they are agents, this is how. But I was later to learn when I analyzed them. And this is one factor also that led to my incarceration there. Because I began to realize that many of them, if not all of them, were compromised. They were working for the Boers. Others were working for Britain, MI5, for MI6, and all those things. That will need a lot of time to explain. But the long and the short is that even our return to the country from exile was anything but what it was supposed to be. For example, as you know, that in the ANC, when there's supposed to be a conference, first there must be this regional conference and then provincial conference, but in exile now, it was just regions. The main region was Lusaka. But after Lusaka, the second biggest region was the United Kingdom. And then you had Tanzania and some few other places. Now, I was in the second largest region, the United Kingdom, when we were supposed to return to the country. But even getting to the UK itself, that in itself is a serious case, because for starters, it was not everybody who...
You know, you haven't answered why you were arrested.
No. I'm coming to that. The reason why I was arrested was the fact that I was a threat. I did say what's name. They felt that they could not...
So what happened? That what was the charge?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Number one, although in some cases there were some kangaroo courts and all those things, in my case there was no formal charge because I was not taken through any process where I was told, look, you have infringed here, and this is the charge against you, this is the evidence that we have against you, therefore we are putting you in prison, you are going to stay so many years in this prison.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You are going to stay so many years in prison. For 8 years, I didn't know when will I ever, if ever, be released from that place. That is number one. Number two, there was no official charge against me. I was just kept there, being beaten up. And then there were times when they tried to write a confession for me. This is what they did with a lot of people. They make you write a confession that you are an agent of the Boers. And a lot of people could not write it because these guys were kids.
So
And
there
they
was
say
infighting in the camps, basically.
it was not infighting. These people created their intelligence, their security. Now the security, they called it Imbogoto. Now these, again, that Imbogoto itself, that's why personally, I don't hate those guys for all the terrible things that they did to us. Precisely because they were taken advantage of, right? They were taken advantage of and they were used. They would just say, this one is an enemy agent. Then once they are told that, they know what they must do. They do all sorts of things. Some people would not last a day in that prison. How I lasted 8 years, heavens alone knows. Some people would get in there in the morning, by the end of the day, you are gone. That's how terrible people...
So you were in jail for 8 years
8
in
years.
Angola?
Yes.
And then uphuma kanjani?
I was taken out of that prison by Chris Hani. But there are many things also that happened leading to that. Like I was telling you about this conference. The ANC, having left South Africa in 1960 under Oliver Tambo in exile, the first time it had an elective conference, a conference where leadership is elected, was in 1985. But before that conference could take place in 1985, terrible things happened. People were taken from the camps. Anybody who's talking like me and people like me was taken there, and a lot of them were killed. And in the camps, there's a time now when people decided enough is enough. We know, for example, Comrade Chola, that was my camp name, my exile name. For example, that's why you guys locked Comrade Chola up in that cuatro of yours. It's because you want to do these things that you are doing to us now. Right now, we have trained to go and fight the Boers, but you don't allow us to go and fight. And then the next thing, you keep calling us agents and all that nonsense when that is not true.
Sure. Okay, so because we're going to definitely have to have a part 3, are we going to leave it there, or you're going to tell us how you get back in 1 minute though? No, yeah, how do you leave from...
Okay. What's name? In 1984, there was a mutiny in the camps. You know what a mutiny is? When the soldiers decide to fight.
Okay.
Yeah, the soldiers took over the camps and all those things. They didn't want to see anybody from the ANC and all those things. The only person who could go there was Chris Hani. They used Chris Hani, but Chris Hani spoke to them, and because they trusted him. When he said they must put down their guns, they put down their guns. After they put down their guns, they were rounded up. Some were thrown into cuatro. Some were even executed on the spot. Many of them. You remember I mentioned Curtis Nkondo. His brother was with us. One of the best brains that we had in MK at that time. He was executed. Firing squad.
Sure.
So these are the kind of things that the people of South Africa have never been told. And up to now, you know, people don't understand what is wrong. When we got to Exile, the leadership that we found in Exile was anything but ANC. Because the ANC that I had read about, right, and the ANC that I found there, the ANC that we found there is the ANC that has messed South Africa up the way it has messed it up in the past 31 years. The biggest mistake that happened in South Africa was for us to allow that ANC to become a government. Because there's no country, me as a commander of Umkhonto weSizwe, who fought. When we were fighting, I was not fighting to be a leader, a president, or a cabinet minister. I was fighting for the people of South Africa to be able to decide in terms of the Freedom Charter what kind of government they want. Because the composition of a liberation movement was such that there were all sorts of things. Agents of the Boers were amongst us, and they are the ones who were making our struggle even more difficult. Because we envied the people who were on Robben Island. We wish we had been arrested by the Boers and put on Robben Island and find ourselves in the camps of the ANC or worse, in that cuatro.
Thank you so much for giving us part 2. We look forward to part 3, guys. We will unpack it nicely for you guys. You know that we always give you the education that you need. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and we'll see you again next time.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into e off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.